Well, it's day 3, London Craft Week. It's really exciting. We've got Frankie Davies from Charl Knitwear here. And obviously Vigour and Skills is about storytelling in whatever format the makers choose to tell us, whether it's the creative process, their personal stories, where their pieces come from. And there's a lot to cover with you because there's a lot of different stories we can take just from like the 5 minutes before this. I guess we should start with you telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I think I always knew I wanted to be a knitwear designer, specifically a knitwear designer, because when I was about 2 or 3, I used to always draw people with stripy socks. Always. Wow,
that's a very sort of forward-thinking
very focused. Yeah,
yeah,
I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I just kind of went along that path.
What happened next though? Did you do the normal route of fashion school and all that kind of stuff there?
So I did a foundation course in Norwich, where I come from, in Norfolk, and then I went to Kingston Uni and did a degree in fashion design there. Then I moved out to Italy when I graduated and worked for a knitwear design studio in Milan, which was amazing. Baptism of fire, but
I can imagine.
Amazing. And I did that for 2 years. I kind of went out there and thought, if nothing else, I'll learn Italian. You know.
Do you speak Italian?
I do speak Italian. Italian. Yeah.
Because I'm Italian, and obviously,
so it worked.
We won't start doing this in Italian.
No, maybe next time.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then I went and worked for Benetton. I used to design the Sisley knitwear for Benetton,
lovely.
Which was amazing. So it's kind of just outside Venice in Treviso, so really good for getting into Venice and all the arts. And it was brilliant because I used to make all their production in Italy at the time as well. So it was kind of before kind of big high street fashion brands like H&M and Zara, really. It was amazing because we used to work alongside the machinists, the programmers, and all the technicians were Italian, and they'd always worked in the knitting industry. So it was really exciting. Things happened really quickly.
Yes, that feels much more. That's nice to hear actually that even in Italy it was more. All keeping it in the same sort of parameters. Yeah. But then you came back here. And
I got headhunted by Christopher Bailey to come and design for Burberry. So
I mean, that's not a bad headhunt to get.
Not a bad headhunt at all. No.
For essentially, a heritage brand.
Yeah, no, I was really excited to come back to the UK because I'd always said I've been a poor student in London. I don't want to go back unless I've got a job to go to. So that was brilliant. A big part of it was a heritage brand. Yeah. So it kind of had a soul to it because for me, I think it's always been really important that something's got a soul.
Absolutely.
It's got a reason to be there. There's a reason for it to be there. So that was very exciting.
And Burberry for a very long time had this and still do to point, this very strong brand image. You recognise a Burberry, coat across. You know what it is.
Yeah.
What was it working there that made you sort of start thinking about maybe going on your own and doing it your way?
I don't think I really thought about. Well, I kind of did. I had a really, really good head of women's wear, Michelle Smith, who always kind of taught us to manage our own areas. So I was the senior knitwear designer on the ready-to-wear collection. In each person that did the denim or did the tailoring, whatever, we were kind of trained to sort of manage our own area. And when I first came on board, although it was a big company, it was still quite a small company.
Yeah.
So we were very hands-on with our manufacturing and sourcing manufacturers and things like that, and pricing and all sorts of things. We used to sell the collection, do presentations to wholesale as well. So it was a very hands-on approach. So I kind of thought it was interesting to get those insights, but I don't think I thought I want to do my own collection at that point.
No.
I think that came later. So when I kind of decided after 8 years working at Burberry, it was a long time, and the company had changed a lot in that time, and it had become more corporate. I think probably more corporate than I felt comfortable with. I don't know if I necessarily thought my values aligned with their values anymore. I don't know, but I think I'd been doing it for a long time. It was very, very fast-paced, and I thought I just need a bit of time out to just kind of do something else and put something back in again. So I went and did a master's in museum studies and curating exhibitions at the Sainsbury's Centre in Norwich for a year, and I actually won a fellowship to work in their curatorial department. And I think that was a complete break, and it was looking at something totally different. And it was looking at, what was really interesting for me was looking at really old, dusty artefacts and how do you draw people in to look at these, and how do you engage people with these things. They're static, they're sort of dead, they're not moving. They're not relevant anymore, and I felt so sad about that. And I just thought, how do you kind of start a dialogue with those things again? Because, in the case of the Guernsey jumpers, they're important. They're part of our heritage. They're something that meant something to people, and kind of should still, because it's kind of where we've come from. You know, this British heritage, it's something that used to be part of our culture. So I was constantly thinking, how do you kind of bring them into kind of contemporary culture?
I love that. I love anything that is, well, we love that, anything that is about not forgetting heritage and traditions.
Yeah.
And back when I was working in the fashion industry, a lot of designers I was attracted to were trying to bridge those cultural identities and very important pieces from their heritage to sort of the modern audience and the future thinking audience.
Yeah, and I think for me the problem was when you're working for a fashion brand, you've got really tight kind of time when you can actually design the collection. You can't go into a really in-depth research into the styles because you just don't have that much time. So that's kind of where the kind of thing I say to myself is it's not ready until it's ready.
Yeah, there we go. There it is.
It's
the
come
line
out a little bit early.
Because I think that was that attracted me so much to your clothing, I guess, your knitwear, because there is that feeling that why does everything need to be like yesterday, you know?
Yeah, and then it's kind of not completely thought through. And I wanted to do something that was completely resolved because, you know, when you're a designer and something's not quite resolved, but no one else knows, but you look at it and you're like, yeah, but that's not quite, you know. And it's frustrating. You don't get the full satisfaction because you know that you could spend that little bit longer kind of working out how to kind of put a gusset into that neck or, you know.
It must be frustrating making something that isn't entirely with the time and love that you'd want, and then someone not even noticing that it isn't. You know, the people that buy it, you want them to really know that it's not the blood and sweat that's gone into it, but just that there has been a whole process that's gone into making this, and there is a lot of love that comes with it, and you should hand it on to your customer.
Yeah, I think when you start up your own business, I mean, if you start up your own business because it's something that you love doing, you're not doing it in order to. You don't normally go into it to make money, I don't think. I think you do it because you love doing it and you feel quite passionately about that thing. Yeah. So, you want to do it properly,
True. So you then take this moment, I mean, it's a big moment, and you then you wake up one day and go, okay, I've figured out the pieces to the puzzle are coming together.
Well, I kind of went into consultancy. So after doing the Masters, I went to live in Italy with my husband and I started getting headhunted for doing consultancy jobs. I thought I would go into museum studies and curating, but actually I've really missed the fashion industry. I'd taken a year out, I'd not bought a single fashion magazine, hadn't bought any new clothes on purpose, and I thought, actually, I really miss it. Yeah. I love knitwear design. Because you're creating the stitches, you're creating the actual fabric, the textile. It's not just, you know, drawing a shape and
also just to sort of slightly defend the fashion industry for a second here, because it is such a brilliant, you know, we both come from it. I miss it too a lot. That there is an energy and a buzz when you're around those creative minds that is so exciting.
Yeah, and what's going to materialise, what you're going to come up with next.
Come out of it, like being around artists, and that's very much sort of speaking about Vigour and skills is something that I felt I really want to connect with that again, because we started feeling so detached from the creative. There were so many people between you and the creative that you were like, I'm sort of losing them. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I consulted for various brands. I sort of helped Nick at Studio Nicholson with her knitwear collection right at the beginning of her collection. And I suppose consulting for other people at small brands, I kind of thought, actually, I could probably do this myself. And I was sort of, you know, I was very aware of the sustainability angle and kept suggesting to various clients, what about this, what about... And at the time, this is back in 2018, 2019, everyone was like, oh yeah, that's interesting, but no, our client doesn't really, you know, this is just generally, you know, in general, as an observation, the market wasn't really responding to sustainable.
Well, it was a big word back then too. People thought, what does it entail, sustainability? It's like, I think people were very intimidated by it. Yeah. I thought, well, if I go down that route, that seems like a really big commitment and I don't know what I'm going to, you know, get their head around it. Yeah,
and I think it was that kind of moment where everyone was kind of thinking, okay, right, what can I do? I can recycle my plastic, I can do this. And I thought, actually, what can I do? Well, I know where to get the sustainable yarn from. I can do that, you know, and it kind of simplify it down because there are British mills. We know now there are British mills and there are mills that produce from British wool. But it was always kind of classified as a kind of a very, very traditional kind of product that you'd make out of British wool. That it wasn't a fashion product, it was a kind of old man's kind of...
granny-ish type of sort of...
not a cool thing. And I just thought, why aren't there any cool brands making cool knitwear out of British wool? I mean... You know, we've got all these sheep, you know, where I live in Warwickshire, there's all these sheep, why aren't we using any of this wool? You know, obviously it's a bit more complicated than that, But that was my question to myself, and when I started looking for the answer, actually there were options available. So I thought, okay, it's not the easy option, but I think it's the right option. That's what I believe. I should be looking at how to sort of minimise waste, reduce carbon footprint. So I
have massively with what you do with Charl Knitwear, which is very exciting. Your inspiration then, am I jumping a gun here though quickly? So you then sort of think, well, I can do this on my own. I'm going to
tentatively started on my own. A lot of people said, no, you can't do it on your own. You need like backing, you need this, you need that. And I thought, no.
We all thought like that back then, though. I mean, no one, one assumes, especially when you come out of such a big industry, you need so many parts to.
And that is daunting, and that is off-putting.
Yeah,
I think that's why so many people don't do it. Yeah. I think I just started small. Thought, okay, I'll start with this, and I'll sell these jumpers, and then I'll just reinvest and make more jumpers if they sell them. And I've kind of just started it like that because I didn't want to make it a big, scary thing where
What's my campaign? What's my thing?
That's kind of, that would put me off right from the start. So I wanted to make lovely jumpers that people love, people treasure. And
did you find that people naturally, we found, there is something, they're beautiful pieces. We absolutely love them. They're incredibly timeless. And they do tap into all the beautiful heritage enough so that it's like, you just, anyway, we love it. But did you find that gaining a new customer was an easy thing to do on your own, or did you feel?
Oh, it was very tricky because I think when I actually launched, that's when we went into lockdown. So although I hadn't thought I was going to wholesale.
Gosh, that's very baby. You're very baby brand too.
Yeah. So it had to be direct to customer because that was the only option at the time. Yeah. So it was kind of just sort of testing the market. And so in a way, it was kind of less daunting because you just gradually sort of grow like that. Oh, I'll try this or I'll try that, and sort of.
Well, lockdown in a funny way allowed us all to just go direct to customers in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't put anything or anyone in front of it. You had all the social media channels, obviously, but I think for a lot of younger makers, they were able to really.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So it was very sort of gentle. Kind of entrance into the market, I suppose. And then last year, I started to do more kind of pop-up events where I could actually meet people because it's so important to meet customers, see what things look like on people. Because although as a designer, I know not everyone is the same shape as me, but you kind of design for yourself. So it's really useful to see how things look on other people in different body shapes.
Yeah. Even with knitwear, because I imagine with sort of silhouettes with dresses and all that stuff.
Definitely with knitwear. Definitely, yeah, absolutely.
Has your design process, I can imagine the answer has changed since working in the big fashion houses to now working on your own?
It's slowed down.
Yeah,
because I don't start with a range plan and have to design 30 jumpers. And obviously I'm very mindful that I don't want to do that, and I've got a core collection. It doesn't change every season because I don't think it's right that everyone renews their wardrobe every season. I think it's more that you buy things that suit you, you love them, and then it's like a curation, like next season you might buy one more piece, two more pieces, I don't know, it depends on your budget, and it just kind of evolves rather than it always being something new. And actually, for when I've been consulting for people, that's kind of the way the market goes anyway. They might put a couple of new pieces in per season, but there's a lot of carry forward.
Knitwear's lovely. It doesn't have to change.
No,
you can have the same blue, wonderful. You want that in, speaking of Italy and grandparents, my first memories of knitwear for some reason are with my Italian grandparents because me and my brother probably received all our grandparents' hand-me-downs. That's just how clothing works there, They're beautiful, But yes, it isn't the idea of buying more. It's like those staple pieces that you just love, and it's your look and it's your identity and your style.
So. And I think, I've lived a long time in Italy, and I think that is definitely the culture. There's the cobblers in the corner, and you always take your shoes there at the beginning of the season to be fixed. It's the same. The dry cleaner doesn't just dry clean; they do mending. They do everything, and it's very much that culture of something's got a hole in it, we'll go and take it to be repaired. But they will spend more on their clothes to begin with. A lot more people own Prada or designer clothes than
less or more, whatever that
definitely.
Yeah. So going to your collections now, your inspiration and your Norfolk fisherman. Can you tell us a bit about that and why that's been such a... I knew nothing about them before. I knew Charl Knitwear, to be honest with you. I'm definitely intrigued, you know what I mean? And I see the references that you've sent me, just your first inspirations, and it's incredible, what you've taken from that.
It is so interesting.
How stylish were they? They looked amazing back then. They looked amazing.
They were. They had a Gansey so they're called Ganseys in
Gansey,
Norfolk.
yes, of course.
So the fisherman's jumper's kind of come from all around the British Isles, especially kind of the east sides that come from the north, up in Scotland, all the way down to, all the way around to Cornwall, but it's kind of that side. And each, I suppose, so for me, I can't say at a particular point when I thought, right, that's what I'm going to do. I certainly went to Cornwall in 2010 with my mum, and there was a museum of fishermen's ganseys down there, or gansey frocks as they're called there, because they're longer. And I can remember thinking, I wonder why there isn't this kind of thing in Norfolk. Because I'd known there were the gansey jumpers, because I can remember going on school trips, going to the spooky museums and seeing them in there, but there wasn't very much about them. So I started to look, and I went to some archives, did some research, and there's a massive collection of Norfolk ganseys. It's so interesting because each town, well, it's not even so much the town, it's kind of each fishing family has different stitches, or had different stitches that they kind of taught from the grandmother to the mother to the daughter, and they kind of evolved like that. And the kind of the centre of the gansey kind of culture was Sheringham, which is a town really near Cromer. And they were so accomplished at knitting the ganseys that they did them on really, really, really fine needles that are really difficult to knit with. All circular, so, you know, all the way up. Then they did the sleeves and the neck. A really, really complicated piece of craftsmanship.
Wow.
Yeah, and they looked so fine that it was kind of almost like impossible that this could be knitted by hand. And this was at a time when knitting machines didn't really exist, or they were the very early clunky knitting machines that didn't make very beautiful things. So it was nice to make something as fine as possible because it was so difficult.
Amazing.
So I think I started looking into it in more detail, you know, more doors opened. It's one of those things where the more you look into it, the more you find. I mean, I love cultural history because, you know, from doing my master's in museum studies. So it was a really nice thing for me to be able to marry the fashion design, the knitwear design, with the cultural heritage, because it gave it a real reason for doing it. And I kind of thought, I don't want to just create more stuff, more knitwear. I only want to do things that have got a reason. But I suppose the traditional gansey jumpers are quite difficult to wear nowadays because they're so tight. I mean, they used to make them really, really, really tight. So there's records of one man saying that it made his earlobes bleed when he pulled his jumper over his head. They had to be so tight because they had to kind of block out the wind and rain when they were on the boats to keep warm. So they're not massively practical and comfortable to wear nowadays. So I thought, okay, and there are kind of brands, very traditional brands that kind of remake fishermen's gansey jumpers.
So how far down did they come down? You said they were long, the original ones.
So the Cornish ones were gansey frocks. So they were kind of to the knee or just above the knee, and they were belted. But in Norfolk, they're a regular length, but quite sort of slim fitting.
I'm blanking, Frankie. Are you from Norfolk?
I'm from Norfolk.
You're from Norfolk. Yeah. Okay, so that's even more. That's an even richer value.
It's one of those things. The seed was sown when I was little, going to the school, going on school trips to the museums. The seed was sown, and it's just been germinating for a really long time.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Even though you've gone to Italy, London, you come
back. Yeah, it's all kind of
Oh, I love that. Sourcing your fabrics, we spoke about that a little bit before, but
Yeah, so I think I kind of became more and more aware when consulting for other people that there were sustainable options, but that kind of everyone kind of thought, oh, customers aren't asking for it, we don't really need to do it. It's not an easy option, a sustainable option for sure. You have to work really hard at getting the right finish. I mean, it's more complicated, but as a knitwear designer, I kind of like a challenge. I wanted to have a go at making it work.
Have you noticed customers asking? Were customers asking 10, 15 years ago? No, I don't think so.
I don't think people knew that it was
even an option.
I mean, certainly as a designer, we never really considered British wool as an option. We always used merino.
Yeah, merino. Gosh, I noticed it, yeah. And
we didn't ever really have time to kind of research an alternative. And because nobody was asking for an alternative, that was fine. And you kind of have your suppliers, that you've always used, and it works. And so why look for anything else? And honestly, it wasn't really my decision to choose whether we were going to. It would be more of a commercial decision from the commercial departments. But I was getting more and more frustrated that people weren't looking at more sustainable options. So when I was doing my own collection, I thought, right, okay, British wool. I also want to do so. British wool's got a certain kind of handle, which is the one that I use is kind of like this. It's quite sort of bouncy, pretty soft.
It's very soft, actually, considering that you don't imagine it when it's this, I don't try to be quite so soft, but it's so...
Yeah, and that takes, getting the right blend, getting the right wash. I like it because it really picks up the stitches in the knitwear, so you can really see it's got kind of the three-dimensionality of it. I also use undyed alpaca, baby alpaca, because you can use the actual, because the alpacas are bred so that they don't dye the yarn. You can actually get the natural colours from the actual alpacas. So there's all different shades of camel colour, all different shades of cream, you know, all different greys, all sorts of different colours.
Amazing.
And cashmere, organic cashmere as well.
What, well, here you are today, and that's great. So you haven't been around that long, actually. And
No.
Consider that you started at lockdown, which is kind of when we sort of started.
Yeah.
That is really a hot second, isn't it? I mean, that's nothing. What's your sort of vision with it? Do you have this sort of long-term plan, or are you just taking every day as it comes with it? It's been a huge success just with us.
Yeah.
I mean, people ask about it, reference it, and love it. So I feel that you've probably got a customer base that's growing quite quickly for you. Is that, you know, do you have a plan, or is this all just feeling very...
There's kind of a plan.
Okay, one that you're not about to expose with us.
No. I think I want to make sure that I keep on loving doing it, because that's why I chose to do it in the first place. I'm very conscious that, and also I think that's when you're at your most creative. If you really love it and, you know, you like testing things out and trying things, then you're going to come up with your best ideas while you're doing that. So
it doesn't feel like a job yet. It's just something that you do every day, and that's how it is.
So I think it's a sort of a balancing act, growing it, but not. I don't want to sort of grow it so much that I stop loving it, and I also don't want to grow it so much that it becomes a business with expectations on it almost. I kind of that's, I don't know if that's
yours. You're protecting it. No, of course it is.
I mean, something that I love doing. I hope that I can continue doing it for a long time. And it's lovely meeting new customers and having that kind of dialogue with them and that relationship with them. And quite often they've kind of got connections and reasons why they like Gansey jumpers, and it's really nice to kind of sort of connect them into their roots as well, I think.
Of course, so it's really important. Yeah. Do you think that this is not one of the questions that we sort of talked about, but, you know, just hearing you speak now, and because a lot of us and a lot of the makers of Vigour and Skills come from much bigger corporate industries and have found this as a sort of, you know, second chance, what's the right way to put it? A new way of doing what they love. Some haven't, some are just sort of ready to sort of start doing it as whether it was a hobby, or they always knew they never wanted to be part of the sort of rat race, as we said before, and do this. Do you feel, because we feel it, this sort of, yes, it's because of the experience we've had on such an opposite way of living life and running your career and job, that this is, you protect it even more now. I feel sort of fiercely protective over Vigour and Skills and the makers, just to make sure that everyone is waking up every day sort of wanting to do what they're doing, not sort of feeling this pressure.
I think that pressure isn't sustainable long term anyway. I mean, it's not sustainable from a kind of mental health perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not sustainable for the planet. For so many reasons, it's not sustainable. Exactly. And for so many reasons, we probably should be slowing down and kind of just looking at how we consume and how we live just in a sort of slower way. So, I suppose for me that's... And I think this whole sustainability sort of question is a massively important thing. And it's about looking at what can I do to make a difference? Well, I can create beautiful knitwear in a sustainable way, and in doing it, I can help people to consume in that way, but I can also show people that it's possible so more people can start doing it, and it can be more of a movement, you know, and there's some other really great brands around that do that too, but I think it's really important that we all support each other and continue to do that. So
we've learned so much just since we started Vigour and Skills through lots of our makers about the different sides of sustainability, because that wasn't necessarily our driving force. It was more about the storytelling, which obviously incorporated sustainability, but there is so much more that we've learned since launching.
It's the kind of, it sounds serious to say it's a moral duty, but I think if you can do it sustainably, then you should be doing it sustainably.
Exactly.
Really.
Exactly. So finally, last question, but which you sort of answered just now with what you said about slower pace, but what advice would you give anyone who's sitting there thinking about starting their own journey and craftsmanship and, you know?
I think you've got to really love it.
Yeah.
I think I'd say that to anybody starting in the fashion industry anyway. You've got to absolutely love it, because it's hard work.
Yeah.
And it's got to be something you're not going to get tired of in 5 years' time. You know, you put so much energy into it that you need to really, really believe in it inside out and have a really, good original idea.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of other people doing it as well.
Exactly.
So you've got to have an idea that you love, you feel passionate about, and that you think is probably unique to you. That it's got your own you can put your own personal spin
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Frankie, thank you so much for coming to London Craft Week. It's a total honour for us to have your collections here. That's it, really. That was day 3 of London Craft Week. Thank you.